another. So we're going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Jody.
Osborne,
Here.
Euler,
Here.
Jones, here, Bentley, not present, Kushner.
Here.
Thank you.
Approval of the city minutes from June 26, 2023. Need a motion.
Move to approve.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones. Yes. Kushner.
Yes. Adoption of the agenda.
Mayor, we would like to add a presentation from an Eagle Scout, Nathan Wiltrout. And we can add that after we do the proclamations today. Since that is not an action item from City Council, we can add that from the floor.
Okay. We'll put that as 5-3.
Thank you.
Okay, with the adoption,
Move to adopt the agenda.
That's amended. Yeah. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
yes. Okay, next up we have
First one would be Gail.
that one.
Yep.
Proclamation. Gail Carlisle has been here probably as long as I have, or near close to it. Pardon me? Yeah, pretty close. I think it's 36 or 7.
Wherever you want me to decide.
Wherever you want to be, and I'll take care of the rest. All right. Okay, Gail is retiring, much to the disdain of the police department. So we'll start this with, whereas Gail Carlisle is a valued employee over 32 years, the city of Warrensburg in her role as one of the police department's records clerks. And whereas Gail is dedicated and worked for 4 different police chiefs, outlasted 4 of them. That threw me off. Transition or 5 different record management systems. Whereas in April of 1991, Gail started her journey as the city's parking control officer. In 1992, Gail came to the police department as a part-time records clerk and transitioned to a full-time clerk in 1996. And whereas Gail participated in the conversion from microfilm to digital records, she trained all new incoming records clerks and has always volunteered as cashier for the Shop with Cop program. Whereas Gail participated in the 1997 Polar Bear Plunge, and in 2010, she assisted with moving the police department into the new building. And whereas Gail's last day of service to the police department will be July 17th, 2023. Now, therefore, I, Jim Kushner, Mayor of the City of Warrensburg, along with members of the Warrensburg City Council, would like to thank Gail for her dedicated service to the City of Warrensburg and recognize the critical role and contributions in the excellent performance of her profession. Gail, thank you. Hang on a minute,
Sorry,
Gail.
we're taking a picture. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
They're not done yet. Okay. Mr. Deal. Yes. And whoever else of your group you want to bring up from Parks and Rec. Come on up, please. Everybody gets to come up here. That's right. All right. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the Warrensburg Parks Department and part of the board. And this is Parks and Recreation Month proclamation, July of 2023. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Warrensburg, Missouri. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's disease. And whereas Park and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, environmental education are critical to childhood development. And whereas Park and Recreation increases communities' economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas the city of Warrensburg recognizes the benefits derived from the Parks and Recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jim Kushner, Mayor of Warrensburg, Missouri, along with the Warrensburg City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2023 as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. No. You got something, Bart, you got something. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, 5.3, presentation by an Eagle Scout.
All right. Hello, I am Nathan Wildrow. I am with Troop 400, and I am working on my Eagle Scout project, which is the Floating Rain Gardens project. So this is something that I've been working with Danielle and Enrico with for a couple of months now. In case you are not familiar with a floating rain garden, I imagine most of you are not, as whenever this project was first proposed to me, we looked it up online and we couldn't find anything about floating rain gardens. It's a pretty unique thing. Essentially what they are is they're these gardens, they're made out of recycled, whether that be from construction sites or plastic waste and whatnot. They're made out of recycle and they float on top of bodies of water. And what these do is they host water-loving plants. So not only are they gardens, they float on top of the water, they look nice, but these plants are also designed, the roots will grow through the gardens into the water and they will help clean the water. So what we are planning on doing, we're planning on constructing 3 of these floating rain gardens. And we are planning on doing it in Lions Lake, as it is one of the more prominent bodies of water in Warrensburg. We're going to do 3 so far just to see how they work out, see if they change anything or not. Because I don't know if you all have been out there recently, but there's a decent amount of gunk just kind of floating around the sides of the water. And the idea for these gardens is to lessen the amount of gunk that is floating around in the waters. So up there on the TV, there's a rough diagram that I drew of how we imagine these to look, how it's going to work. Is it going to be a 5-gallon bucket of concrete that's going to be the anchor for this garden, so it's not floating all over the lake and it stays in one spot. And there will be steel cable in this concrete going up, and eventually it will branch off into a tri-point anchor system that will attach on 3 points to this big old piece of black corrugated PVC pipe. And on the bottom of it, we're going to have a tarp to prevent the bottles from, if anything happens, if it flips upside down or anything. There will be plastic bottles inside and the netting on the bottom to prevent anything from flipping outwards, just in case there is an accident. Inside, there will be plastic bottles, which will help support the dirt that will be on top, and the plants will just be hanging out. Any questions on the floating gardens project?
Are all 3 going to be at Lions Lake?
Yes.
Okay.
And is that designed to adjust for, because right now it's low, the lake is kind of low, or the lake to come up or come down, and can they stay out there during the winter?
That is the idea, yes,
So they go out there and then they stay.
yes.
Nice.
That is an interesting thought, one that we have not thought about. That is interesting to think about. Have to think about that with the water rising. and-
Mhm. I don't know how much it does, but somebody probably could tell you.
Anything else?
Anything else?
Sounds good.
Will they flower?
I'm sorry.
Will they flower? Flowers?
I'm not, I know we figured out what plants, so it's very important to figure out what plants are needed. We want something that is a part of our like general local area, so it doesn't conflict with the biosphere. I know we have found a store in Jefferson City that specializes in that. We have the idea of what plants we want to get, not sure what those are exactly yet. But we are still working with them to figure out what's best for our area.
There may already be some anchors out there because at one point we had 3 bobbers. Before we got the fountain, we had 3 bobbers, and then we went down to 2 bobbers, now we have no bobbers. But the anchors might still be down there.
Cool.
Sounds great.
Any other questions? And you've already presented with Parks and Rec and they've approved everything?
Yes, we have their full support and approval for the project.
Cool. And I've got to say, this is my grandson, so it's a good project that's going on, and by far Lions Lake needs some help. Okay, thank you, sir. Have a good evening. Okay, next we're gonna have. Wait for everybody to get going. Public hearing. On an ordinance amending section 27-246. Of this Code of City Ordinances of Warrensburg, Missouri regarding marijuana related uses. Barbara Carroll.
Thank you, Mayor.
Huh?
There's not a sheet.
Okay,
We'll have to ask.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Last fall, the Missouri citizens approved Amendment 3, which allowed recreational marijuana use and sale within the state of Missouri. And over the winter months, there was some discussion at the council level and with Planning and Zoning Commission about what changes would need to be made to our local ordinances in regards to that. And there was some discussion during that time about changing the distance requirements that we have between marijuana uses, dispensaries, cultivation facilities, et cetera, in Warrensburg and other land uses such as residential districts, adult entertainments, liquor by the drink district, liquor by the drink establishments, and things like that. The final outcome of those discussions was an ordinance was passed in February that allowed the recreational uses in Warrensburg in the same manner that they allowed the medical uses. And there was no change to the distance and buffer requirements. So the distances stayed the same, and as well as each individual buffer requirement type was maintained. The discussion at the time at the council level reflected that if a specific request came forward in the future, then council might consider that. And so at your June meeting, a gentleman by the name of Jake Griffith appeared and requested such an amendment. And staff has brought forward last week to the Planning and Zoning Commission and this week to your body a proposed ordinance. You have both a clean copy in your packet as well as a red line version in the packet. And this ordinance amends only section 27-246. So it doesn't change any of your use categories, doesn't change any of your parking requirements, simply changes the distance and the buffer requirements. And so if you look at that red line copy, you'll see Any words that are in red with a strike through them, a line through them, are words we're deleting. And any words that are red with bold text are new words. And so the substance of the ordinance that's in front of you this evening would have the impact of eliminating the requirement that a marijuana related use maintain that it shall, so it would eliminate the requirement that the 100 feet from a residential district. So right now, any portion of a lot that is within 100 feet of a residential district means you can't have a marijuana use on that lot anywhere. So it eliminates that requirement entirely. And then the other requirement that it eliminates is the marijuana related uses be 250 feet from an establishment licensed under chapter 3 of the Code of City Ordinances to sell liquor by the drink. So that liquor by the drink distance requirement is eliminated in the proposed ordinance that you have in front of you this evening. And then finally, it eliminates the word medical under the distance, the last section of the ordinance where it tells you, the state tells you how to measure between uses. It eliminates the word medical for medical marijuana. Planning and Zoning Commission discussed this ordinance at their meeting last week, and they had a long discussion about protecting our residential districts, whether or not they wanted to remove that residential buffer, and then also discuss some other requirements, particularly the one, the distance 1,000 feet from a church. They talked about that one. Ultimately, they approved and recommended approval of the ordinance that you have in front of you this evening as written. They didn't make any changes that beyond what staff had recommended. So they discussed several things, but ultimately recommended approval as presented. Staff would recommend approval as presented this evening. I do believe we have one gentleman attending by Zoom, the Jake Griffith that was here a few weeks ago. I think he may be online and want to make some comment. Be happy to answer any questions.
Would you mind describing so that people here understand the distance? It's not how the crow flies, it's how you.
Right, so the way the distance is measured is typically from the structure to the property line of the other use. So from the structure of the dispensary to the property line of another freestanding use, such as a school or a church. If it was another use that was in a strip mall, then it would go from front door to front door. However, you can't just walk line of sight to it. It's not as the crow flies. You have to go out and use the legal path, shortest path of travel by foot. And so you would need to go, let's say, out the front door, across the parking lot to the sidewalk in front, down the street, and across the street at the crosswalk, and then back down the sidewalk to the other properties. So that was one of the considerations staff had looked at when we looked to see if there were other ways to do setbacks from residential districts. But given the path of travel, if you did that 100 foot, say from residential structure to dispensary, giving an example of, there's a strip mall behind Sonic and like Wired Graphics is in there. That strip mall backs right up to a residential district, but the legal path of travel by foot would be to go out to McGuire Street, through the parking lot, out to McGuire Street, down the sidewalk to North Street, down North Street to Charles Street or Land Street, and then back down to that property that's literally right behind the strip mall. So that is well over 1,000 feet. So even maintaining 100 foot from structure to structure, measuring in that way, you're almost never going to be under 100 feet. And staff felt that that gave a false sense of security to people who might read the ordinance and think, oh, well, I'm over 100 feet away, you know, or I'm closer than 100 feet, so they wouldn't do that in my backyard, and not read how to measure. And so it didn't feel very transparent. So we have recommended just to eliminate it entirely.
Okay, you said there's one on Zoom, and anybody else that wants to speak on this, after we get done with the Zoom? Because we forgot to put out a sign up sheet. We'll deal with that right after we deal with Mr. Griffith.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yes, sir. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You should in your packets in front of you have a presentation towards the end of those. First of all, I would like to thank the city council for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I would also like to thank Danielle, Barbara, and Kristen for all the help that you've given me. This project would not be possible without your efforts. Like Barbara said, I believe I am not able to attend in person today. I am on vacation in Florida at this time. With all that being said, last time I came and spoke to the city council regarding this issue, I did see a lot of confused faces. Hopefully the information today I give you makes the content and ordinances being discussed today a bit more clear. So what is a micro business? Going to that second page there. Very different from the comprehensive dispensary we have here in town, Besame Wellness. Comprehensive dispensaries can be thought of as your big pharma, if you will. They have millions of dollars literally to build a brand and produce multiple profitable locations. Micro dispensaries are their small mom and pop competitors. I think it's truly unfair to hold the both of us to the same standards, given especially how the micro business license was designed and supposed to be implemented. Like it says in your packet, these licenses are designed to allow marginalized or underrepresented individuals to participate in the legal marijuana market. In order to qualify for this license, you do have to have a service-connected disability, or be arrested, prosecuted, convicted of a non-violent marijuana offense, or have less than $250,000 net worth. There are also some other requirements that are not really applicable to myself or that of Warrensburg. An important thing that I did want to note to City Council is this is a part of the Missouri Constitution. Therefore, it is worth noting the concept of unduly burdensome, which can be defined as the measures necessary to comply with the rules or ordinances adopted pursuant to this section, subject the party, like myself, to such a high investment or expense of money, time, or other resource or asset that a reasonable, prudent business person would not operate the facility. Going to your next page in the packet, you can see here, this is the reality of Warrensburg for a micro or for any dispensary at this time. Yellow arrows indicate the owner of that strip mall or whatever retail facility has indicated they do not want a marijuana related business there, or they have a contract saying as such. Those red circles are personally ideal locations for a micro dispensary at any dispensary. The red circles encompass Ace Hardware Strip Mall, owned by Jeff Franklin. He supports this use. Midtown Connection, Discount Smokes and Liquor, Papa John's, King Chef area, Sonic/Wendy's area that Barbara mentioned, as well as the Ping's Hibachi/Old Family Video area, and of course the Prime Gem or the Prize Gem, Pine Street/downtown Warrensburg. Going to the next page here. What am I asking for as a potential micro business dispensary owner? I would, in an ideal world, I do absolutely need these changes that the city staff recommended / the zoning commission recommended. Those are absolutely changes that I need to happen today in order to conduct my business. In addition to these, I would like to ask the city council to consider the reduction of the school, church, daycare, public library buffer to 100 feet. If anything less than 1,000 feet would be ideal. I'll put it that way. It would make my life a lot easier for sure. And optionally, you could apply all those changes to all marijuana dispensaries. But like I said previously, I think it's a little unfair to hold micro business license owners to the same standard as multi-million-dollar businesses, if that makes sense. Going on to your next page there, is there precedence for this? Absolutely, especially in the state of Missouri. St. Louis, Missouri, there's 0 feet buffer from any church, school/daycare. Kansas City has gone to 300 feet from churches, schools, daycares. Ellisville, Missouri, which is about half our size, I believe, went to 500 feet from churches, schools, and daycares. And fun fact, here in Warrensburg, we only require our liquor establishments to have 100-foot buffer from churches and schools. So I hope we can find, there's a little bit more medical benefit than a liquor establishment, if that makes sense. And then going on to the next slide there, why should you want this opportunity? There are tax dollars, local sales tax, as well as the 3% sales tax that the citizens of Warrensburg voted on and passed. There's job creation, and as well as a correlation with reduction in crime with the addition of another dispensary. A study from the National Library of Medicine, National Center for Biotechnology Information is quoted as saying that an additional dispensary in a neighborhood leads to a reduction of 17 crimes per month per 10,000 residents, which corresponds to roughly a 19% decline relative to the average crime rate over the sample period. Going on to the next slide here, this is kind of our timeline. Like it shows on July 3rd, 2023. So last week we did have what the city staff recommended was passed by the zoning commission. Today is July 10th, the city council meeting. I do see that you guys have another city council meeting as well. However, July 27th is when the applications for micro businesses are starting to be accepted by the state of Missouri. To this point, the Department of Health and Human Services has said and stated that they will work with early applicants to assure their application meets all requirements and everything else. And again, I want to be crystal clear. I cannot submit my application to the state of Missouri until, at bare minimum, the changes recommended by the zoning commission and city staff are passed. Now, with all that being said, is there any questions that I can answer or anything that I can clear up for anybody?
Any questions from the council? You have
Anyone here in the audience here to speak on this during this public hearing? Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Stephen B. Moody. I live at 1105 Thompson Street, apartment F3, Warrensburg, Missouri. And I've been a Warrensburg resident off and on 40 years. I don't like the idea of 100 feet. Is that what is proposed, 100 feet? The thing is, if I was coming out of a church and I saw somebody 100 feet away passed out from whatever, alcohol, drugs, alcohol is just a drug. Marijuana is another form of drug, but it can make you do some really silly things. Because I have almost 40 years in law enforcement. I've seen some people do some really stupid stuff on alcohol or drugs. And it's not appropriate for some people to see that. And it's uncomfortable for some people to see people throwing up and whatever. Now, marijuana does have absolute, I think back, it's got medical benefits. I got no problem with that. But unfortunately, some people don't use it for medical purposes. Basically they take advantage of the law and they use it to get high and get crazy and that kind of stuff. And to tell you the truth, alcohol it's just as bad as marijuana or worse. And I don't want to see that, especially if someone is 100 feet away from a school and they come across somebody laying in their own vomit, or, like I saw on the news tonight, these people that are addicted to Enzymil or whatever that stuff is, it's the new stuff now. They're laying around comatose all over the place. And I know marijuana doesn't do that, but I have seen people on marijuana and they're goofy and they can do some really silly things. So the medical marijuana aspect of it, I have any problem with, but I was thinking a city block is about 300 feet, isn't it? City block? Okay, well, I think pretty much here in Warrensburg, if we limited it to 2 city blocks from anywhere that's going to have schools or hospitals or old folks' homes or the police station, whatever, I don't know. But the schools and churches and stuff like that, 600 feet, I can't see something happening 600 feet away. It's out of sight, out of mind. So unless you want to walk down there past it, that's your choice. But I think a fair middling ground, this gentleman said he'd be thrilled to death with anything less than 1,000 feet. I think a couple of blocks away would probably be more socially acceptable to the people that don't really want to partake or experience the downside of this thing. Same thing could go for bars. That's not the question here tonight. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thank
Nope.
you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moody.
Well, appreciate the opportunity to say something, and I don't know this gentleman who's proposing it, he's a businessman. If we're gonna have drugs, we need to do it right and tax it and support our people. So I'm not against it, it's the law of the land, so go for it.
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak on this?
Please state your name and your address for the record.
Governor Rest, 36 Northwest 400th Road. Just so I understand what you're voting on, is it to take it down to 100 feet? Is that what you're voting on? No. Okay, it's still going to be 1,000.
The ordinance is presented as written, leaves the 1,000 feet from a school, church, or daycare.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the public on this subject? From the council?
Go ahead and close the public hearing before council discusses.
Okay, we'll close this hearing then, and now we'll open for our discussion. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry, Doug. Yeah, I know that. Public hearing, or excuse me, no, first and second reading of an ordinance, first and second reading of an ordinance amending section 27-246 of the Code of City Ordinances of Warrensburg, Missouri regarding marijuana uses.
Move to approve second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance amending section 27-246 of the Code of City Ordinances of Warrensburg, Missouri regarding marijuana related uses. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay. Next ordinance is first and second reading, an ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat. Snacks Park #1, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg located at 715 East Young and 729 PCA.
Earlier this year, you had a plat in front of you named Alex's Addition. And this plat tonight involves lot 2 of that Alex's Addition subdivision. That's at 729 PCA Road. There is nothing on that lot at this time. The 715 East, Alex Addition lot is 715 East Young Street. 729 PCA Road is a daycare, an existing daycare. And that lot is developed with the daycare, and they would like to expand that daycare. And so this would take their lot and the lot 2 of Alex's Addition and combine them into one lot. So this minor plat is a lot combination that would facilitate the expansion of that daycare. The surveyor and the applicant have made the changes that staff had requested, except for a couple items, and those have been incorporated into the ordinance that's in front of you this evening. They don't change the substance of the plat, still has the same amount of frontage along Young Street, just changes some labeling of some easements. Staff would recommend approval and be happy to answer any questions. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval last week with the 2 conditions.
And this is just picking up that little like leg there.
On the north end, there's a larger piece to the lot of lot 2, and then there's a leg, that comes down on lot 2. That leg so there's 2 legs, this final lot that you end up with. has two legs. The west leg is coming out of the Alex Addition lot, and it's 50 feet of frontage on Young Street. The east leg is existing leg that lot has always had. And if you went out in the field and looked, it's going to look like a street, like the street that goes north alongside of American Legion.
Mhm.
Turns
That's
out
what-
that's not a street, it's a private easement. And this is 25 feet of that.
Okay,
So,
that's the part that had me confused.
yeah, that is not a city street, but it sure looks like one.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Motion then?
Motion to approve second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat of Schnatz Park, number 1, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 715 East Young Street and 729 PCA Road. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, next one, an ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat of Stella Place, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 709 South Holden Street.
This is a project proposed by Ethan Farrell, and this minor plat actually reestablishes the lot lines of an existing parcel that has existed for some time and creates it as a single platted lot. So we're not taking two lots and making one, or taking one lot and making two. We have one parcel becoming one lot. And the lot lines stay the same. The city does pick up a couple easements through this process. They have already removed the building that is on the back portion of the lot and some of the gravel driveways. Staff's only condition, and that recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their meeting last week as well, is that before the plat get recorded, that gravel driveway is to be fully removed and the building is to be removed and the plat be revised to show those improvements been removed. The lot is under construction for a new duplex, I believe it is, and it will have still have access, the driveway access coming off of Holden Street, but it would be a hard surface driveway for the duplex that'll be built there.
Okay. Questions, concerns? Motions?
Move to approve second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat of Stella Place, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 709 South Holden Street. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Barbara again, an ordinance approving and accepting minor plan of Wyatt Place, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 133 and 135 North Water.
This is also a project being led by Ethan Farrell with Barnwood Heroes Properties. And this is at the southeast corner of Colton and Water Street. And if you drive by there right now, there is, so what the plat is creating, it's taking existing parcels from an 1800s to 1800s lots. And I mean, the century of the 1800s. It's taking two portions of those lots, parcels that have existed for many, many, many years, and replatting them into two new platted lots. And so what is interesting and made this plat necessary is the Colton Street, it is very narrow on the north side of the new lot number 1. And that is platted, Colton Street, the right of way existing today since the 1800s, platted for that was only 14 feet wide. The built improvements exceed that 14 feet and lay on Mr. Farrell's property. And so he is replatting his property into two new lots. And that north lot, lot number 1, is wider from north to south, and he has additionally dedicated an 11.5 feet of right of way to the city of Warrensburg so that our street, the improved street, will lay in platted right of way along his frontage. So his lot then is wider because he has a 30-foot setback from that street. And so he has made lot 1 a little wider at 72.5 feet than lot 2, which is at 60.46 feet. Both of those meet the minimum requirements for lot widths in the zoning district that it's in. They have made all of the required changes that staff had, except for one, which was, we are requiring the curb gutter and sidewalk along the south side of Fulton Street. And when the surveyor made that note, he picked up only curb and gutter. And so we need to have him add the word sidewalk to that note. So we think a word just got dropped there. There is a structure under construction on lot 2 already. If the plat is approved and recorded, then they will proceed to begin construction on a duplex on lot 1. Planning and zoning recommended approval last week. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And that's still an active platted alleyway on
On the east side,
yeah.
no, it has never been opened as far as I know. And he's not intending to use it. His access will come from Water Street. We did let him know they could apply to have that vacated because he's got an adjacent property owner there, veteran, that would have to participate to vacate that. I don't know if they'll pursue that in the future, but at this point, he has not pursued that.
Okay.
So it'll remain as a platted alley under its authority through the 1800s. It's not within the boundaries of this plat.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, concerns, motions?
Move to approve second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat of Wyatt Place, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 133 and 135 North Water Street for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Okay.
First and second reading of an ordinance to approve addendum number 3 to Anderson Engineering Incorporated proposal for the design of Cooper Street Extension Project under terms and conditions of engineer services agreement dated March 1st, 2022 in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, and Rico.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have a few handouts for you all.
Thank you.
So before you tonight is a change order for the Boulevard Extension Project. The item for discussion is that we are changing the amounts of the contractual agreement of an increase of $67,000 to account for inspection services. One of our employees is going through some medical issues and won't be able to really attend that project full time. And so we've requested the engineering firm be able to provide those inspection services for us, to which they are able to account for that in the construction schedule. So that's kind of the point there. The map that I wanted to illustrate to you all is a deletion of the southern half of the proposed sidewalk on the Cooper Boulevard extension. That's demarcated in red. The point being in what we're doing there, we had a concerned citizen raise the issue of connectivity issues
from basically Magnolia to Walmart. And that they've observed citizens walking in the street routinely, and obviously that is a safety issue. And so they've asked for the city to be able to look into filling in that gap. And so as I was reviewing that complaint and immediately recognized its merit. In order to make that happen, especially with the agreement that we have with the TDD of an amount not to exceed 1.1 million. We had to remove some of the sidewalk that at its current state wouldn't have provided much benefit. That doesn't mean that there wouldn't be any benefit in the future, but if you look at the northern half of the sidewalk, there's going to be a pedestrian crossing from the trail, eventually leading all the way to Walmart. So that would provide some of the more immediate benefit to any pedestrians that are going to and fro. So that is kind of conceptually what was going on. I probably should have given a better conceptual map when I gave the information in the agenda packet. So I can stand for any questions if you have any. But I just wanted to keep you all apprised of the happenings of the Cooper Boulevard Extension Project.
So this is just eliminating half of the sidewalk.
Correct.
The north half will still stay there with the crossing to, okay.
Yeah.
And adding that to Walmart's a smart idea because
Absolutely.
there's become lots of foot traffic through there.
Yeah, there's a lot. I used to actually live around there, so I had kind of seen some of it and forgot about it. So when the citizen raised that, I'm like, yep. Here it comes. So
Okay.
fortunately, we're able to accommodate it.
Is there a projected start date yet?
About a week, 2 weeks, we'll be starting.
Okay. I hadn't seen any mobilization. I was just curious on that. Okay, questions, concerns from the council, other than what I brought up? And then we need a motion.
Move to approve second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing the city manager and the city clerk to approve addendum number 3 to the Anderson Engineering Inc. proposal for the design of the Cooper Street Extension Project under the terms and conditions of the engineering services agreement dated March 1, 2022 in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, other business, downtown parklets and sidewalk dining discussion by Enrico.
The initial stuff here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So before you tonight is a discussion on parklets and sidewalk dining. So that was actually a picture taken in front of Myers Market. And I thought that that was appropriate, especially for tonight, as there is some precedence for eating outside and enjoying the outside weather in downtown. And so granted, that is sidewalk dining. We can also see that as a Java Junction. This is a very rich discussion, so there's a lot of highlights given, but I'll also entertain any detailed questions as they come. Also with me tonight will be Warrensburg Main Street to help kind of supplement any information that I may miss. Next slide, please. So we'll go into a little bit of the highlights, and some was summarized in the staff memo. But parklets have been referred to streetery or on-street dining, but they all mean the same thing. Parklet, the original term was essentially a micro park in an urban area. So there's gonna be a lot of flowers and a lot of greenery to be able to attract pollinators and other things. And they've eventually grown into being able to eat and dine and just kind of hang out in addition to just having greenery in an urban area. Parklets rose to prominence, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, during the shutdown orders that businesses and as the general citizenry was put under. And so from there, once the orders were lifted and the parklets were originally seen as a temporary measure, the proof of concept has already been established that, wow, these work. They generate foot traffic. They create a sense of place where it's welcoming, inviting, and it's different than just seeing vehicles and concrete and brick and mortar. And so that has given a lot of cities that have participated in programs like this great benefit. And there's a lot of things that could be asked about parklets, but for you all, I really tried to narrow it down to 3. Certainly not exclusive to these, but these are good jumping off points to begin the discussion. And so the first thing would be, is this something that you would like for staff to work on? The second one would be, would the city council entertain the idea of owning the parklet and then potentially leasing it out to any unique business establishment in downtown, or allowing the business establishments the right to own and operate it, and then approach the city in the form of a permit and then pay some sort of rent for its use of the right of way. And a third question, and just as pertinent, would be, how would you want the parklets to look? And so a classic example that I like to use is, if I say the word fire hydrant, generally speaking, we're all probably going to think of the same thing. But if I say parklet, my definition and my vision may be different than yours. And that's not, there's no right or wrong there. Some of it just comes down to creative expression. But with parklets, because there really is no true standard for what one should look like, that's just a good policy question to consider as we move forward with anything. But it should be noted that if it were custom in any way, that there would be some design standards around that, such as constructed of non-combustible material, or don't exceed 3 feet in height. And that's just for any sight distance issues. You need to see any oncoming cars, things like practical reasons. But you can design within that at your creative leisure. So to be able to stimulate some of the discussion, I came up with a short list of pros and cons for each question. And it's certainly not an exhaustive pros and cons, but it's just something to consider as we look at these questions in some detail. So a pro of working on this would be that it could be a way to energize downtown and add unique character. And for the most part, it is something new and exciting. And so that has a lot of value intrinsically as well. Cons, staffing issues potentially with the city, as you know, could cause additional work for plan review, potential for PD for enforcement perhaps, and a reduction in some premium parking. So I could keep going, but I can stop and we can discuss each question as we move along, however you would like.
Does a parklet typically stay year round? Or like wintertime, people wouldn't be sitting outside, so would parklets let's be removed during the winter?
So some cities have opted for them to be permanent. That they're there year round, even in the snow, and I was going to show you some pictures of that. And then other cities have elected to, as soon as the winter season approaches, that they need to be removed to accommodate any snow removals, but also to alleviate any fire safety issues. So in some instances where people wanted to dine outside and their parklet was made of combustible material, They had those space heaters that kind of look like a mushroom. And they would remove the top canister for whatever reason, and then there'd be a 3-foot flame next to a street tree. And so from a fire safety perspective, many cities have elected to, you got to remove it during the winter time. But some cities have opted for keeping them year round. The city where I come from, where one of my other duties as assigned was to be the parklet program manager, we had that year round. So there were unique challenges with that. But you can design around that and you can work around that. But best advice would be to have them be removed seasonally, or at least before the winter season.
I think it's something worth looking into and putting a little bit of time into it and come back with dates and maybe some conceptual looks of how it might look and what times they can operate. I don't know what hours you were talking about it, but I see we've got some business owners and different people here that maybe, I don't know if this is appropriate for them to come up and speak now. If they have any input to this, I know they're here listening, but I don't know if
I
they.
welcome.
Yes.
So we actually have been talking about parklets with our downtown business owners for almost a year now. We had our downtown business owners meeting last week. We had 17 business owners down there, all of them very interested in this concept for downtown, not necessarily all of them wanting a parklet for their location, but very interested in this concept for downtown as far as dining options throughout the downtown. They also had kind of the same questions that are being presented tonight. Who owns them? How long can they stay outside? What do they look like? Who pays for them? All those types of questions. We do have business owners here. If they want to speak, they can, but we do have a very large interest in downtown to have these. And then as far as Main Street goes, we obviously have the opportunity to apply for grants to help pay for the construction and that kind of thing if the council opts for them to be privately owned instead of owned by the city. Any questions for me? Something that Enrico did not say, just to make it clear, these are ADA compliant. They do match up with the curb. So it's just a seamless transition from the curb to the parklet. So there's no issues with ADA compliance or anything of that nature.
What about the non-food businesses?
So I do think that either through council or maybe just best practices that that we limit the number of parklets that are downtown. So whether that means there's 4 and you apply and they move around or whatever it is, but there is options for non-eating type businesses if they want to pull their merchandise out. Or if they just want to have a nice place to sit in front of their business, that is also an option.
Well, my concern is, let's say Brown Shoes, as an example. They're losing parking spots for their daytime business.
So we have over 500 parking spots in downtown. And we all know that our downtown is very compact. So losing 4 or 5 parking spots in our downtown is, I mean, it will make us walk a little further. We don't really have a parking problem downtown. We have more of a employees parking in the wrong location. So we have plenty of parking spots downtown.
And do we have signs downtown that points to parking lots? I think we used to in the past, but that might be something to.
Wayfinding signage would be beneficial. Yes, some additional wayfinding signage would definitely be beneficial, but we do have plenty of parking spots downtown.
During your meeting with business owners that were showing interest, were they leaning more towards having the ability to design their own parklet to show their personality of their
We
business?
did discuss that more than likely there would be a standard as far as certain height, certain materials that it had to be made out of. But yes, there is that interest to maybe add bench seating or maybe bring on your own separate seating that you purchase, you know, from a store, umbrellas versus planters. So there is that kind of flair that people can change it up. They were really more concerned with, like I said, who's going to pay for it? How long can they stay out? What's the process to get one for my business? Those kind of questions.
And I'm sure that's something you're looking into with Main Street, what other cities are doing. to get
Yeah,
us
we actually
right.
reached out to several main
Sure.
streets to get different ideas and concepts and parklets have been around the Main Street world for 10 years. Like this is not a new concept for us. And like Enrico mentioned, these came really popular during COVID. So we have specs, we have stuff for stuff that's on trailers that can be hauled off. Obviously, there's a bigger cost for that because it's metal. But then we also have specs that are super simple, like wooden, kind of easily assembled and disassembled.
I think it's a great idea. I've eaten at Myers Market out front with a bicycle and there's no sidewalk left.
Right.
Right.
I think it'd be great.
That's a nice idea.
Are y'all thinking just for both of you, is it just for restaurants or is it any business owner can put it in?
So to be fair to any business establishment in downtown, it would be offered to any establishment, so whether it's retail or restaurant. I will say that anecdotally, in Lawrence and in other places, Manhattan, Kansas, that where they allow for parklets, very little retail have elected to participate because they have to pay to staff someone to man those goods. And so for those reasons, it's not a very popular amongst the retail establishment, but we would be open to the idea of having retail participate in this program.
Okay, what about? And I'm probably delving too deep right now, at least. Other places out there that already have outdoor seating. There's several restaurants around town that do that and. I can't think of any that's got on-street parking more than downtown, but will this affect that in any way, shape or form?
We'd have to sit and really evaluate that one. I wouldn't be able to answer that.
All right, I'm just thinking, like Zydeco's has got outdoor seatings, a couple of the other restaurants that I know of.
At least the intent for right now would be to establish this in the downtown area. So the point being, especially the way that downtowns are generally zoned, where the front face of the building, the right of way, it's kind of easier to accommodate structures, such as this. Whereas in other areas, it's a little more challenging. That's where these are also most common and popular is in more of those downtown zoned areas.
Okay,
And would part of your study as far as which you would come back as for a recommendation be how a percentage of how much parking are you going to give up? What percentage of total parking spaces could be used?
Yeah, we can certainly provide that. That'll be
so say if there's 150 prime spots downtown, what percentage is the collaborative of business owners willing to cough up to do this? Because, I don't have a problem with this. I think it's probably a really good idea and I've been to other cities that have them all over DC and places where you can just wander, go sit down and have something to eat or little parts where you can, like we have the flower spots and stuff downtown already. So, yeah, more information.
Yeah, more information.
More information.
yeah, we can certainly provide the parking information.
And I kind of like maybe just a season or something, if it's farmer's market season and so it kind of coincides, and then we have the streets open up for snow removal, as you said, or anything else that comes up. But
And it's not to throw you guys on the bus, but public safety have anything glaring out there about it?
I think our biggest concern on at least the Warren Street thoroughfare is it's narrow as it is, so. It would potentially impact some everyday response on the street, but nothing major as far as access.
Okay,
And just your parking and other cities are doing it and all over.
okay. I just thought I'd ask.
nobody back there wants, anybody else? They are. Even Hunter's quiet back there.
I'll move on to the next question.
All right.
So would the council like for the city to own the parklets? Or would you like to allow for the alternative where the business establishment would purchase all the materials themselves, apply for right of way permit, and basically rent the use of the right of way?
I think that should be part of what you bring back to be considered
Recommendation or something.
part of the
Yeah,
recommendation.
because I can see both ways on that. Of us owning it, we have better control over when you're allowed and not allowed. But I'm renting it. I can see.
There are liability issues to be considered.
Right.
As well.
Right, that's where I was going next, was I was gonna see, his place, what's bad or good for us.
Just getting some feelers.
Yep.
I come back to some conceptual.
I can do that.
Okay,
And then final question, would the council like to allow for custom parklets or kind of cookie cutter? All of them look the same if you want to have a parklet.
my opinion is all the same, then that way they're easily identifiable. Oh, let's go here, there's a parklet. But that's me. I'm one person out of 20, 30,000
I
here.
think it's conceptual. If you come back and you say, where it kind of looks cool, you know, one block or different ones.
Wanting to have, there's a couple.
Some basic standards of safety, but after that, I think you could have some different looks to
Okay,
jazz up downtown. It'd be great. It's up to you.
So we
I'll provide recommendations.
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Definitely, we always have opinions.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm sure.
I'm trying to go into this without any slants, because obviously, and I'll show you some pictures. Again, anecdotally, when we started the parklet program in the thick of COVID, there's a lot of things that were waived. And then that came back to bite us. Nobody got hurt. But it was just proving to be challenging over time and trying to manage the parklets. So if you were to allow for custom, this is in downtown Lawrence. As you can see, the parklet is raised and it is flush with the curb. That is for ADA compliance, along with the seating, but it's very generic, very simple. And you have some traffic control devices there just to protect any cars from kind of bumping into it or anything like that. But that's one example of a parklet that was used often.
It looks like a guardrail.
It does a little bit, but again, here's another one in Lawrence, just down the street. This one is a lot more extravagant. Again, all of them were flush with the curb. If there were a ramp or anything like that, handrails were a part of the design. So this is where it's getting close to, or in the winter season, I can't remember, but you can see all of the space heaters there. And so that was basically its own little microclimate inside of that parklet. It was very hot. And so that did kind of pose a challenge for fire safety staff to try to control for that if these are allowed during kind of the season. And so when we were doing audits of all of these parklets, just the fire safety issue always became a thing, especially with any electrical wiring or if any awnings or anything were installed that weren't to NFPA 701, then we would have to recommend removal. And so again, those are just the lessons learned without using any standards up front.
yeah, because that one right there has got roughly 200 pounds of propane in it.
Yeah, no, we were able to fix this one, but again, this is kind of an example of what not to do, but it does look nice. And then here's another example. This is in Clayton, Missouri. So these are very similar to the ones that are in Manhattan, Kansas, where it's all kind of copy paste, where they all basically look like this. Very simple design. Again, flush with the curb. You have all of your ADA needs met. The handrails are durable enough that you can lean on them and not fall over. So these are some of the things that's what they could look like. But you see more of these than you do these.
I've
So,
seen the last one, like up at Zona Rosa and places
Yeah.
like that, that are nice, but there's still sidewalk to walk on by the place.
and so by and large, this is the most common design. And surely the easiest to build. So other than that, just kind of open it up for general questions if you have any. I will say that it has been a common approach to, as these parklets get developed, that the basis by which how long a parklet should be is generally determined by how long the front face of the building is that faces the street. So for example, if we're talking Pine and the street is just any business on Pine, you can say if a business, the face of it, if you were to go straight out, occupies 5 stalls, certain cities have said, well, then they're allotted up to those 5. That has posed some parking challenges and then also some equitable challenges too, where if a building were skinnier, say only the equivalent of 2 parking stalls, well, then they say, how come I only get 2 and then they get 5? Other challenges have come in the form of if the business is at an intersection where they face, say, Pine and Holden, then they're like, well, I have 2, so I'm going to occupy everything. Some cities have said you got to pick one side. So those are all policy questions, but what has worked is that you give a restriction where minimum of 2, maximum of 3 stalls in length that a business can occupy, just to keep it clean. So,
How you gonna work that on diagonal parking?
well, in Lawrence, it's diagonal or kind of angled parking, so it is possible. Originally, we tried to convert all of Mass Street, that's a very popular street in Lawrence, to parallel. It was a nightmare, so then we switched everything back to angled. And that was all of Mass. But you can comfortably do it. But it just requires a little bit more detail and thought. So I'll stand for any questions, and Jill, if you would like to add anything else. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Thank you. Giving you enough stuff to go find out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Just timing wise, if I could, we will, we are kind of coming to the end of our summer season here, so we will work very diligently on this, and we will try to bring some recommendations back to you all very early, like probably middle of winter.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that, like you said, with time constraint, if we end up getting this done and all, that we've got enough time for next season. Okay.
We'll be back soon.
All right. Next, Jody, we have a resolution to adopt a resolution approving Stevenson Fund donation request by Teachers Warehouse of Johnson County in the amount of $500.
Yes. So I am in receipt of a donation request. This is an annual request given to the city by Teachers Warehouse of Johnson County. It's to provide classroom supplies for teachers. The Stevenson Fund was established through a bequest by Charles Stevenson in his last will and testament in 1928. The city council serves as committee and trustees of the trust fund and will administer the funds according to the will. The will provides that these funds be used for charitable, educational, and library purposes. There is a requirement that the fiscal impact of the request will be based on the available net balance of the income for such year for appropriations after adding 1/10 of the annual trust income therefrom to the principal each year. And after all the expenses of administering the fund of the year are paid. $500 is their typical request. It's not been increased. And so I present to you a resolution
And
for consideration.
there's plenty to handle that within the. Okay.
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Osborne,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 9, I have 4 mayoral appointments here. Travis Hume for Parks and Rec, Elizabeth Hargrave as Diversity and Inclusion, Allison Roots as Diversity and Inclusion, and Max Ridenhour on P and Z. Motion?
Motion to approve. Osborne,
Yes.
Euler.
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next is number 10, and before we start here. Anybody that wants to come up, this is appearances to the council not listed on the agenda. Just hang on. There is a sign up sheet, correct, Doug? Okay, and has everyone signed up? Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll start with the three people that are signed up here is Eva Norton. State your name and address when you come up to the stand and speak, and our standard is limiting comments to 3 minutes.
Rolling Drive, Warrensburg, Missouri. Hi. Thank you for letting me talk. I really just kind of came to ask the city council if something can be done about a situation. I talked to the library board about it. I've talked to other people in city. Oh, sorry. I've talked to other people at City Hall about it, but it's mainly the unhoused population in downtown Warrensburg. And I know that there's been lots of talks and there's lots of opinions and it's a supercharged discussion. The one thing that I just wanted to bring is, for example, today I was driving a new family who just came here. They PCS to Whiteman, the husband's a pilot. And we got to their house, they drove down Holden and there was that, the big, Warrensburg, it's lit up near the library. And there was about 8 people sitting there, either sleeping or with big bags. And we got to their house and they said, I didn't know Warrensburg had such a big homeless population. So one thing that I wanted to bring is I kind of looked at what other cities are doing. One thing recently Kansas City did is something called Ordinance number 220276. And what that is they changed their wording and they made it basically, the first thing is no person shall put up or keep and maintain or occupy any tent, lean-to, tarpaulin, or other structure for purposes of habitation or place of living or lodging, either temporarily or otherwise, upon any privately owned grounds within the city. However, no person shall be in violation of this section if they are the owner of such grounds or have a lease or other consent from the owner thereof. One of the issues I saw is on Google Maps, if you go where the Home Depot was supposed to go, there was a big road that went through there. It's a big thing of wooded land out behind the AMC near Walmart. If you go on Google Earth, it says homeless camp, and it is. So this would help that situation because I don't know if the same person still owns that property that used to own it a couple years ago, but I know that it's private land. And I don't know if the people who are living on it have the authority to do so. And that would handle one situation. The other situation that is in this ordinance that Kansas City did, it's a no loitering ordinance specifically for the downtown shopping area, meaning that it gives business owners the ability to ask the police to help someone leave if they're obstructing any walkway or any sidewalk in front of their business. I know, especially with the parklets that we're talking about, it seems like that is a great idea. And I love it but that could be a problem. So anyway, there's my thoughts. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ian Gann.
Hello, can you hear me? There we are. Ian Gann. I put down one of my Warrensburg properties to Hillcrest. I currently live outside of town, but I've been in Warrensburg, consider it my town for 20 years now. And I'm here very briefly. I spoke with Parks and Rec Board, wrote them, and spoke with Chris on a situation to kind of back up what Eva is saying. On Friday, my kids go to summer camp there, and I came to drop off my kids, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. There were 6 adults in the reception at community center, and 5 of them were the unhomed. 2 of them were sleeping. And I asked the person on what they could do about it. They weren't sure. They gave me Chris's number to call. I went and talked to some of the counselors, 16, 17-year-old young girls and guys, and they expressed to me that they had numerous times complained about it, felt unsafe about it, that the boys were no longer allowed to use the boys' restroom. They had to go with them into the family restrooms, and they had to accompany the girls into the family restrooms when they changed, that they no longer took the kids through the reception, that they tried to keep them out through the back entrances or the side entrances. And anyways, then the next morning, this morning, I went to drop my kids off and was yelled at and asked if I wanted to fight by somebody else that was there of the same thing. And I go, well, this is kind of weird to be dropping my kids off for summer camp, which has always been awesome. And then on Friday, when I went to pick up the kids, there was a van there, and it was a large cargo, like a passenger van, and had a shelter tag on it. And it was picking up people that they dropped off in the morning to leave at the community center the whole day, next to the largest, I think, kind of daycare thing in Warrensburg, which is the summer camp there. And I'm all for helping people, all for rights, but the concept that I'm dropping my kids off at our community center and there's a population that is traditionally unstable and one would never think to drop them off at our school, or we're gonna make the new place for, day shelter to be our kindergarten. I mean, so I don't know what all you can do about it other than I'm not putting this on Parks and Recs. They're working real hard. We're talking about maybe changing some guidelines or how they do it, but Warrensburg has a highly increased unhomed population. And according to some of the shelter guys, it is because there are people that are being shipped out from other cities into here, and it is increasing. As long as that happens, I come from a big city originally. There's reasons why one has zoning ordinances and things like this, and it's to keep what is traditionally a more unstable population away from a vulnerable population, which is often children and elderly. And that's why I think something should really be looked at as to if this is going to continue to be a problem. If we continue to increase it and people get bussed down to where a bunch of kids are, it's probably going to end one way, and that's going to be horrible. And I don't want that to happen. That's why I came up here. Thank you for your kind consideration on it.
Thank you, sir. Vicki Gibson.
Gibson, 99 South. Good afternoon. I bet you guys are asking yourself why this woman keeps coming back. In God's word, Proverbs 31:8, God says to speak out on behalf of the voiceless and for the rights of all who are vulnerable. And that applies to every Christian, which that I am. And until something is done at the city level to protect our children, I will be vigilant in this cause. It's as simple as a city ordinance to protect the mental and physical health of our minor children. I also will reiterate that you do not have the right to allow any individuals or groups of people to steal the innocence of our children. You know as well as I do, it is not a normal desire to perform in front of minor children in disguise, and we're trying to protect the children from next year's events. It's alarming to me that you do not see the urgency in the situation to protect the minors in the city. And what this is called is indoctrination, which is the process of teaching an individual or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. And I think that probably sums up the situation before us. It is disturbing that you, our city council, have now stepped into this role yourselves by taking no action to protect the minor children, by supporting and rewarding this immoral movement even. So not supporting the community that you represent. So your lack of action will affect these children emotionally, mentally, thereby affecting their ability to make sound moral decisions in the future, which is also our future. Our action has always been about the minor children in the community and the abnormal desires of this movement. This is and will always be about the children. We want the children protected. We are imploring you to please stop this madness. I will leave you with this. If you cause one of these little ones who trust me to fall into sin, It would be better for you to have a large millstone tied around your neck and thrown into the depths of the sea. Matthew 18:6. If any of you profess to be Christians, this should terrify you. Thank you.
That's all the signups, so we shall move on to, yeah. Miscellaneous matters from the mayor and or council. Okay, city manager report, Ms. Doolin.
We'll open up the floor for any department directors that wish to address the governing body. Quiet group tonight.
They're all quiet
This
tonight.
evening. I guess I will wrap it up and just say thank you all for the time that you came in early today. I know 5:30 is a quick turnaround and then head into another 7 o'clock meeting, but we do appreciate the opportunity to share with you the work that we've done in developing our operational budget. We will meet again, same place, same time next 2 Mondays from now, so that'll be July 24th. We will go over the public works budget and those other budgets that we did not have an opportunity to get to, and we will continue to work towards adoption in August.
Okay. Ms. Marcella.
I'm happy to answer any questions. There's revenue information there for the month of June, and we're running right on target for budget, actually a little excess, next up. We're doing well.
Cool. All right, with that, we will adjourn. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
I gotta go